Hello and welcome to the Superposition Guys podcast. My name is Yuval, and my guest today is André König, CEO of Global Quantum Intelligence. We discuss the increasing global interest in quantum technologies, the challenges of scaling and commercialization, and the evolving investment landscape. We also touched on the complexities of geopolitical strategies, including export and import controls, the rise of quantum nationalism, the need for startups to focus on specific use cases while also dreaming big, and much more. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Hello, Andre. Thank you for joining me today.
Great to see you, Yuval.
Great to see you. So who are you and what do you do?
Who I am, starting with the big questions. Since soon 5 years, I am a quantum technology expert, influencer, entrepreneur. At least I try very hard to be. I'm originally from Germany, grew up all over Europe, moved to the States. I now live in Miami Beach after 15 years in New York 20 years ago. Spent kind of the first half of my career, a dozen years in management consulting. I'm a trained economist, so the professional services side of my career is still strongly influencing me. And then when New York started to have a little bit of a complex with Silicon Valley and lack of startups in the city, I was asked by IBM that brought IBM Watson, their first AI system, which is now re-emerging with Watson X, to market if I would do a startup. Had an artificial intelligence startup for 6 years and a tiny little exit, after which I moved down here to Miami. And one of my good friends and biggest clients, the CTO of one of the big Wall Street banks, whose opinion I trust very much, in a conversation at the Russian vodka room around horseradish vodka, which I do not recommend to anyone, suggested that I look into quantum technologies. Physics is always something that interested me since high school. Mathematically, I wasn't inclined to study it, and tried again at MIT for a few months. Ended up with a number of certificates, but that clearly was the best I could do. And founded Interference Advisor, which was a type of Crunchbase pitch book on quantum technology, collected about 30,000 data points on who the vendors, startups, investors, use cases, governments, universities, and quantum are. And competed with a few fine gentlemen, notably Doug Fink, who started the Quantum Computing Report in 2015, and David Shaw, who started Fact-Based Insight out of London, with the deep analysis of the quantum tech space. And as of December of last year, 2022, we combined these three entities into a new one, Global Quantum Intelligence, GQI, of which I'm now the CEO. And we work with vendors, but mostly with governments, users, and investors in quantum tech global.
How global is Global Quantum Intelligence? What do you really cover in terms of geography?
It depends who I talk to. When I talk to the right people, I say we're a little bit of a CIA of quantum technologies. That's, of course, aspirational and exaggerated. It all starts with technology, and we've built that since 2015, where we have a number of different technology scrapers and short of a dozen different languages. And we have a list of proprietary sources, and we scrape quantum tech intelligence into our database, categorize it, label it, and visualize it, and so forth. And then there is a human element. I also started a little over 3 years ago an organization called One Quantum, which is a quantum tech community for humanity. We had chapters in over 21 countries. Started the Women in Quantum chapter and a startup chapter. I know you helped out with that a little bit as a member. And that really gives us networks from the mountaintops of Nepal, which is a fascinating story, throughout Southeast Asia, Africa, Latin America, and so forth. At GQI, we have teams in 3 countries, the UK, the US, and in Southeast Asia. We're 8 full-time people. We have clients on 3 continents, and we have a network of 24 freelancers that help us with projects in a handful of other geographies.
For instance, if I'm a government entity and I'm worried about China, can you help me?
We can. Of course, you have to be careful when you work in quantum. who you talk to and what you say, but we do have relationships in geographies that are friendly, across North America, Europe, Southeast Asia, and other places. We have the same types of relationships in some of the geographies that might be considered less friendly or competitive or potential adversaries, not just China, but others as well. So we do get retained, and we're actually working on a report for a European organization to provide that kind of analysis, and we're able to scrape all the public sources that are available. But we have large networks from students and interns over professors to entrepreneurs and investors and some government officials in these geographies, and we're able to collect that intelligence. And what's beautiful is when you work in something like quantum technology, and I'm sure it's the same for you, Yuval, you develop a little bit of an intuition for it, right? So it takes only a few words from a person that you're talking to, but you're then able to put this into context, maybe mentally map it to a roadmap or a strategy, and just from a few words are able to glean insights that might be very meaningful. And if you do that with a team like we have over many years, you start to gather some interesting intelligence.
Some say that there's a rise in quantum nationalism, and I think it may go both ways. On one hand, there's discussion about export controls, which technology can you export to what countries. But then when we look at some of the national programs, there seems to be also limitations on import controls, meaning we need the technology to come from, say, within the EU or something else. Do you think that governments that do that are serving their own interest well?
I think everybody is still figuring it out, be it business models, revenue models on the commercial side, or geopolitical strategies on the policy side. My home country, Germany, of all places, shame on my people, put an export ban on Israeli technology for quantum technologies, and that was one of the very first in the industry. Australia followed with a ban on foreign direct investments. In the U.S., of course, you have the CFIUS Act, which talks about foreign control of entities and IPs and IP in the U.S., and now an export ban. We have 6-7 government clients from innovation industry over military defense and to kind of the secret services on 3 continents. And I'm shocked by the disparity of, let me say, questions that we get from them. Some have very benign questions. Hey, we're trying to figure out how serious is quantum computing, or should we worry about this company more or this company more, and how close are they to a breakthrough quantum computer or sensor or encryption standard or whatever it might be. And others have a lot more strategic intelligence and questioning, where they're really interested in very specific people, assets, products, and are much more concerned about the bigger implications. So I think it's still a game of figuring that out, even at the federal level.
Some people say that quantum computers are useless today. I mean, they're useless in the sense that there's pretty much nothing you can do on a quantum computer that you cannot do classically. Now, that may change in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, depending on who you believe. But if that's the case, why do you think countries are trying to buy quantum computers to jumpstart their national quantum programs?
I think it's a little bit of FOMO, fear of missing out, and a little bit of smart planning. Fear of missing out, back to my example of Germany, there was a statement a few years ago by a government official saying that Germany as an industrial nation missed out on the digital revolution, it missed out on the internet, it missed out on artificial intelligence, it missed out on blockchain. I'm not sure how blockchain went. We cannot afford to make this mistake on the next big technology, which has been identified as quantum technology. And I think from that point of sense, that's a bold bet and a little bit of fear of missing out. At the same time, what's the alternative for a country like Germany and many others? when you look at where growth and innovation will come from, which is what you need to thrive and survive in this complex political world, right? At the same time, and you and I, we share large enthusiasm for quantum technologies. We believe it might potentially be life-changing, right? And you have to make that bet. And I think we all agree that unlike other technologies, quantum technologies has a longer on-ramp. You can't just buy a team of developers, sign up to the IBM cloud, and all of a sudden be quantum ready as a user. It takes an intellectual effort, first of all. It takes a human resource effort, and then it takes a lot of trial and error, and that takes time. So I think from the smart planning point of view, a lot of people and regions and countries realize that they need to position themselves accordingly.
Your partner, David Shaw, and you guys do a lot of analysis on technology. What's your bet on the leading modalities for quantum computing?
You know, I was laughing with your previous question because just this morning, somebody, one of our clients, a Fortune 500, sent me a paper by Matthias Treuer, Microsoft Corporation, an extremely well-respected researcher and technologist. And he argued we might not be seeing any real use cases in quantum other than in chemistry, which might be possible. Mr. Preskill, maybe the most respected and well-known scientist in quantum technology, a few months ago, published a paper saying that all the use cases in quantum chemistry that we ever talked about are impossible. So before we look at modality or what type of quantum computing architecture, I think there's still a lot of work to be done at understanding that computational complexity and how we're even going to apply that to industrial and business and geopolitical problems or opportunities. And I think there will be room for many different architectures to do that, be it on-premise or in the cloud, be it on a ship, be it analog and hybrid, like I know you are doing on your road towards digital, which has the advantage of delivering results today already, right? And specific problem sets. Who the winner will be, I don't think there will be an overall winner. Of course, we all dream of, might it be a topological, back to Microsoft or photonic quantum computer that is unlimitless, scalable and powerful. But reality is always more practical, and there'll be a lot of room for many. And we know the issues. Superconducting is hard to scale. Trapped ions, I struggle to understand. Neutral atoms, that is kind of where all the hype and attention is right now, and for good reason. And photonics and spin qubits, we're still waiting a little bit, right? So that race is still too early to call, in my opinion.
You have venture capital clients as well. And when you think about starting a new company in the quantum space, where do you see opportunities? Is it in a new quantum modality? Is it on quantum sensing? Is it on key distribution? Is it on the application layer? Is there one or two areas that stand out to you as ripe for innovation for startup companies?
I'm going to answer that irrespective of the type of quantum technology. What I miss the most in quantum, and really across computing, quantum cryptography or sensors, is extreme focus. And I did startups for 10 years before getting into quantum. I was a startup mentor at Techstars and other ventures. And my personal lesson, and many might disagree, is that the more a startup focuses, the higher the odds of success are, because you can always land and expand. If you're successful with one specific use case, it is much easier and much more credible to expand from there. And we don't see that very much yet. Just yesterday, I spoke with friends that that are focused on quantum computing solutions for the cargo industry and logistics. And they are trying to raise a small round of money. They have a very narrow use case, and they have 800 contacts in their database in that industry. They have a dozen proof of concepts in that industry. They just have a really nice story and also positioning in this cargo space to do what they're doing. And we don't see that enough yet, in my opinion, in quantum, where companies just narrowly focus on a specific use case and try to own that. At the same time, I'm going to contradict myself. The other thing that I'm missing in quantum, and again, it doesn't matter if it's computation or sensors or cryptography, is the bold entrepreneur, a Tony Stark, like we have in the movies, and somebody that just thinks ridiculously big and is not afraid to attack a big idea. I had a post on my LinkedIn on a movie that just came out on Netflix, Heart of Stone, which is about a quantum computer called the Heart. And the quantum computer is exactly that. It is the heart of an entire new infrastructure in this not so futuristic world 10, 15 years from now. And I don't know enough people that are working on this concept of, the heart of quantum computing. So I'd like to see both of those extremes.
And on sensing and communication, do you feel that they're much closer to being market ready than quantum computers?
Yeah, we just published in our Outlook report series, the quantum sensing report, and it is fascinating where, really many are familiar with the use cases in medical applications with scanners and mining and resources. Of course, positioning systems, but there are also use cases in neurology, for example, and the brain interfaces. Some really fun, weird, interesting stuff where you see entrepreneurs like the ones I just dreamt about that try to go after a specific niche. So those markets are a lot more mature. The technology is much less susceptible to some of the scaling and error issues that we know from quantum computing. The overall market is much smaller, right? So it's a little more challenging to be successful there. But it is an exciting space where I think the average maturity of a vendor is a little ahead of what we see in quantum computing. Quantum cryptography, we call it quantum safe, and we have an Outlook report on quantum safe that you can also see on our website. It's a little bit of a different beast. There, it's a huge addressable market. And of course, the overall cybersecurity market is an extremely mature market. But I think there's a little bit of trepidation in the market, right? We know of about 80 vendors in this space that go after PQC, software-based solutions, and QKD, hardware-based solutions. And then you have platforms and other hybrid offerings out there. That technology, what we've seen, you know that well from NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, didn't turn out to be super reliable. NIST says, don't sweat it. We're going to come out with the next round and everything will be fine. But something as critical as infrastructure and the security of our infrastructure, be it a private or public, needs more certainty, needs more trust, needs more standards, needs more regulation to really see that the industrial and commercial rollout of the technology. And I think that's the biggest missing piece that nobody has tackled yet.
You've been covering quantum for, I think you said 5 years. What have you learned in the last 6 months that's new? What are the latest trends, in your opinion, in quantum?
On quantum computing, we do see the timelines too, and everybody has a different name label at this point, from quantum advantage to quantum utility or useful quantum. We see those timelines accelerating, where 12, 18 months you had barely a small handful of quantum computing vendors that could make credible claims to execute on that. We now have at least a dozen, including your company that you work with, that is making tremendous progress on that front, right? So just the sheer volume of technology, product, and teams that has credible solutions and is entering that commercial era of quantum has grown tremendously. At the same time, back to my comment from 5 minutes ago, I think everybody is still figuring it out. And we've probably figured out how to make qubits and hundreds of them. We haven't figured out how to make many thousands of them yet. or even gates, right? But we figured out a lot of the engineering. We figured out a lot of the product. But people are still figuring out a lot of other things. Who is the buyer? Why would the buyer actually buy it? What is the pricing for it? And what's the real value proposition at a tangible level? And that whole discourse has shifted dramatically away from, here's my qubit and look how amazing it is, to what can we actually do with my qubit and how do we bring it to market? And of course, this whole conversation of other applications, be it sensing, quantum cryptography, and so forth, has picked up tremendous speed. I also think that the international quantum technology scene is getting a lot more credit. It has been a lot about the US and Canada in kind of the first 4 years of my experience in quantum. Europe is making a lot more noise. In the UK, in France, in Germany, also in Switzerland and Austria and Finland, of course. We see more and more credible and very ambitious projects. Israel, which has a tremendous program and an ecosystem of startups that's highly competitive. Australia. Many of us just came back from Japan, and Japan has a extremely ambitious national quantum tech program with the OEMs, vendors, investors to pick that up. And I think that's something that hasn't necessarily emerged in the last 6 months, but 12 months or so. This summer, I was asked about it by one of our clients earlier today. Has been fairly quiet. A couple of questions on our mind is when and how will we see spin qubits emerge in quantum computing? There's a lot of hype and expectation around that. There is a lot of speculation around annealers, solvers, optimizers, potentially losing ground and market share to companies like Quer and others that are doing an increasingly impressive job at delivering real quantum computational power, not just solvers or annealers. And that again is a shift, and kind of a tidal shift in the industry that we might start to see emerge.
I want to ask you about money in two parts. One, where is the money in quantum computing? Some say there's only one buyer these days, and it's the government or governments. And the second is, what trends do you see in venture investing in quantum?
The money in quantum is, from my perspective, still non-existent. We all know this survey in 2022 that put the overall space at 750 million. And much of that was indeed government money. Let's assume that doubles this year, and I doubt it doubles this year. That is still a tiny market, right? It's not even what Amazon makes in a day, I believe, in terms of profit. So there is no money. That's where I would start. When you try to again discern where the money is, of course, federal contracts, but there are a couple other things that we see emerging. Very surprisingly, we see more and more on-premise models in quantum computing emerge. It's been a big trend, and of course driven by the US and IBM, Microsoft, Azure, AWS, to be a cloud provider of quantum computing. Where we've seen money recently, INQ is an example in Switzerland with Quantum Basel and I believe 24 million. And we see more and more of that. High-performance computing centers and data centers on-premise. IBM themselves made an on-premise deal with the Cleveland Clinic, and those are real numbers, and it's starting to add up, and that's very interesting. Where there is money is in consulting. You'd be surprised by the money that some of the big consulting firms and quantum make. There is also money in the cloud space. Don't get me wrong. We have some insights on how much these big cloud providers might make with their quantum offering, and with this pricing structure of cloud credits that can add up very fast. That is a big business as well. So we see different things emerging on the revenue side, but that is still from a very, very low base. And again, we believe too early to call any trends. On the investment side, we've seen a real scarcity of early stage and seed money. When you look at the data, most of the investment rounds have been B, C, D, and follow up or bridge rounds of existing investors that brought a handful of new investors to the table, or sometimes a new lead investor that's a little bit more mature and professional. We haven't really seen many of the early stage and seed deals, and most of the money has not gone to U.S. startups. Most of it has gone to European startups and Asian startups, and with the exception of Sandbox AQ and Strangeworks, Worley's firm in Austin, 2023 so far has been rather quiet on the U.S. front, but that's going to change in the second half of this year. We know of a number of large rounds. So there too, the trends, we had about 2.4 billion in venture capital money invested in quantum technologies globally last year. It's probably going to be a little bit more, but not much this year. So calling trends is still difficult. When we speak investors, and we do a lot of due diligence for investors on deals, that storyline has definitely changed as well, and mirrors what I said earlier about, hey, look at my qubit versus here's what I can do with my qubit and how I'm going to sell it. Investors now will want to see the roadmap, will want to see the financial projections, will want to see the first couple of POCs or clients, and that is something that has changed for sure over the last 12 months or so.
And last hypothetical, if you could have dinner with one of the quantum greats, dead or alive, who would that be?
Well, I don't think you and I have had dinner yet. We've had drinks, but not dinner.
I'm not a quantum great, at least not.
Oh, come on. That's a good question. I'm not sure if I'm able to put a name on it, but I would love to have dinner with definitely a scientist, a researcher. We are a professional services company at the GQI, and I hope I reflect that in my professionalism. But when you have a drink at night potentially and dream about the future, quantum is a crazy thing, and I'm sure there are people that are working. I'm going to give you an answer. Eleanor Riffel from NASA. She's absolutely fantastic. I moderated a panel with her and 3 industry CEOs on it a few months ago, and my closing question to them was, where do you see quantum going, and what is your biggest bet? And the first CEO said, well, we've done quantum for 5 years, and we have a 5-year roadmap in the future. We're spending 20 million on it. We're very excited. Second CEO says the same thing in different words, same the third CEO. And Eleanor from NASA said, well, I've been working in quantum for 45 years. Our roadmap is 50 years out. And, we're looking at teleportation. We're looking at time travel. And that's all theoretical and aspirational, right? Don't get me wrong. But the people are at least thinking about those topics. And that would make for a fun dinner conversation.
Wonderful. André, thank you so much for joining me today.
It was a pleasure to be with you. I'll see you at the next conference.